So from now on, it's being recorded. And I would like to quickly introduce what MyData is doing. That will be a very quick rundown. So some of you might know that already, because the main stage belongs to Andreas, our guest today. So what is MyData all about? The idea of MyData is to empower the individuals, with focus on individuals, to self-determine ownership of their own data. You'll find a whole lot of information about this on the MyData.org, which is a non-profit organization. So you can take a lot of time to read this material. I'll make this one rather quick. Just to let everybody know, there's a lot of places where data is being stored these days, increasingly in our digital world, obviously. And you see the logo of the MyData organization, which points out a little bit in which places the data is stored. Today, focus will be on mobility, but other sensitive areas such as health or finance. With that said, there is currently a transition going on. At the very beginning, things were API-centric, so everybody was talking to everybody. It was a little bit chaotic. Then the big tech companies took over, started to collect a lot of data, and over time started to realize not everything what's technically possible does also make sense or is regulatory-wise allowed. So going into a digital future will lead also towards a more human-centric maintenance of data. That's what MyData.org is all about. The vision is that we have control of our own data. So the personal data is in the center, and we can basically decide to whom we make this data available. There are three key areas, and very quickly, the actionable rights is basically, it's all about consent, which is becoming an important component these days. The second one is empowerment. That's people should be more aware where their data is. So contrary to the first days of Facebook, where the pictures of drunken parties were uploaded, which was very unfavorable in the next job interview. So a little bit more awareness is certainly in place. That's the reason why we are running these meetups. And the third one is about open ecosystems. It's about interoperability, right to forget, right of a copy, and these things. These are the principles. I'll show it very quickly. Again, human-centric, individual empowerment, portability, transparency, and interoperability. A few words about the MyData Zurich Hub. We started out in early 2019. The organization MyData was in place for about 2 or 3 years already. We had a few coordination meetings. The initial idea was to have hands-on workshops, which turns out a little bit difficult in these COVID times. So we are running webinars, which has the advantage that we can have guests from outside Zurich as well. Our first workshop took place in September 19th, and I just checked it this morning. Today, we are already on our 8th meetup, this time around as a webinar. There's a video, I'll jump over that one. The team, as you can see, is André Gollier. He's the president of the Swiss Data Alliance, Daniela Gunz. She'll join us a little bit later. Same with Pauline, so they have a parallel meeting, but they join in a moment, and myself. And with that said, I would like to welcome my colleague, Andreas Bieniok. I always had very interesting discussions with him. I always learn a lot. And he's the business development management of Scheidt Bachmann. It's maybe a company which at least I had not on the radar so far, but they are doing a lot of interesting things. And I think with that, I'll hand over to Andreas, and he can make a short introduction of himself and specifically Scheidt Bachmann, what they're doing, and then move ahead with his presentation. So I'm going to show the presentation. I have to set up the technology a little bit. Let's hope that it works. So with that said, Andreas, thank you very much for being with us, and the stage is yours.
So thank you, Peter. Also, so you will give me the presentation.
Yes, just trying.
So Scheidt Bachmann, probably I worked a long time in the public transport business, and even I didn't know the company, because the company is a bit like the impressum in a newspaper. For example, in Switzerland, all ticket machines from the Swiss Railway or from Rhätische Bahn or Südostbahn, they are from Scheidt Bachmann, and you see the claim of Scheidt Bachmann on the right side down. That's Scheidt Bachmann. We are in Switzerland present with these ticket machines, and in a lot of countries also. We work in more than 50 countries, especially also in America, in Great Britain. But that's not that's not the main topic today. I will show you what we do else. I wait still for presentation.
Yeah, I'm struggling with my twin screen a little bit. So worst case, we have to do it this way, because
I gave you in the email.
Yeah, can you see the screen? Can you see the presentation?
Still not.
Yeah, we see the presentation, the first page with the portrait of Andreas.
Okay, let me quickly check.
But in the edit mode.
Yeah, if I switch to the presentation mode, then it goes to my second monitor.
Okay.
Okay, so you can see the screen, huh?
Yep.
Okay, good. Sorry for that. I'll make it a little bit larger. So, can you see the screen, Andreas?
No, I see your presentation.
Still there? Huh, that's weird.
Oh, I thought that first.
Oh, that's not from my presentation.
Ah, okay. I thought that the next pages would be yours. Okay. Sorry about that, Pete.
Yeah. I know where the issue is. So now you should be able to see it.
Okay.
And you still can open the full screen.
Yeah, it goes. If I go to presentation mode, then it goes to my other monitor. Let me see what comes on your screen. That's the presenter mode. I guess we have to do it this way. Sorry for that.
Okay. So then you can go to the second page. Okay. So you see this picture we already saw. It's interesting that this picture comes from Finland, from the Ministry of Transport and Communication. So we are quite close to the topic, the public transport system. In the as Peter already said, in this concept, the individuum is in the center, and it concerns all aspects of life. And this Finnish approach was also taken from the European Commission, especially also for the case of data protection. So I think that's a really good concept. And just last week, for example, even Microsoft with their cloud solution Azure, they also presented a system where they referred to the MyData concept. So that's really a European approach, and it's human-centric. So when you would go to the next page, this we saw also the technical basis, these APIs, and the big question if it's open or if it's closed. And the traditional approach is this, I called the Big Four aggregator approach, where the companies in the center, these Big Fours, Apple, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and MyData, there is the individuum in the center, and it's an individualistic and integrating approach, as I said, with the individuum in the center. So you can go to the next page. Also a picture from that brochure from this from the Ministry of Transport of Finland. Now we see, especially in transport, we see a lot of approaches with apps. We have a lot of transport apps for ticketing, and they all function the same way. You download an app, and in the app you install a user account, and for this user account you give a credit card, and then you can take tickets in your app and pay even this ticket. But every app is from a company, and even for the same systems you have normally a lot of different apps. Every transport company has its own app, and it's quite difficult to integrate different transport modes which are holding different apps. The MyData approach is more an account approach. So that the account itself, not the app, is in the center, and it allows access to different services, and these services can come from the ecosystem of companies. So I think that's a really important difference. The app is more for the, you are connecting an app with a user and with an account, with a payment facility. And in the MyData approach, the account itself is in the center and gives you access to services. It's a bit the same than a bank account. A bank account gives you access to payment services all over the world. So I think that's the really, it's an important issue. It's about the account and not about the app. So the next picture. I'm a traffic engineer from profession, and in traffic engineering, the integration of different modes of transport was all the way always a big issue. In planning, we tried to integrate or to coordinate road and rail and bus and all these systems, and so that's quite traditional for us, and normally that ended in integration in organization. You have all over the world, you have organizations who try to integrate the different traffic modes in one area. Often it's separated between private traffic and public traffic, but its aim is to integrate in an organization. Now with digitalization, this classic approach is really, there's the question if an account is only an app and an app is only a company. That's the big question. For example, when Uber tries to integrate also public transport, then there is resistance, because public transport is something else than Uber private transport. And there is a lot of discussion about app and the concurrence between apps, a bit the same as the concurrence between the big four, as I mentioned before. So the one account, that's an approach, but when one account is only one app and one company, then probably we will not find solution. By the way, that's a picture from Cubic Transport. That's our main competitor. Scheidt Bachmann and Cubic, they are the two main companies in this business, especially in America. Some cities are maintained by Cubic and some by Scheidt Bachmann. For example, in New York, the city itself is from Cubic, and the area around is managed by Scheidt Bachmann. So the next approach, next picture, that's this organizational approach. That's quite common in Switzerland. For example, in Switzerland, we have organization for all public transport to coordinate. You can, with one ticket, you can try all different public transport companies. But now there are initiatives also to not only to integrate transport, but also to integrate platforms or mobility. So taxi, private car parking, and also tourist activities or events. But here in this approach, normally it's the approach from organization and from national organization. There is not the big four companies from America, but here is every country tries to create his own organization. In public transport, even every region tries to have his own organization. For example, in Switzerland, we have about 20 organizations to organize the regional public transport. So that's another approach, not this big four from America, but from the organization. Then next slide. So from our country, the big example is the Netherlands. Netherlands has also an integrated transport system. In Netherlands, we have a check-in, check-out system, the same as the worldwide airplane system. In Netherlands, when you take a train or you take a bus, you have to check in, and then you do your trip, and then you have to check out, and then in the background is calculated your ticket, and you get is purchased to your car. That's why in Netherlands we have about 14.5 million accounts with 2.8 billion transactions. So for every trip you do in Netherlands, you use your card for check-in and for check-out, and behind is calculating the fare, and you get calculated, and it goes to your bank account. So that's this system we work in the Netherlands, and it's called here in German ID-based. The same system is, for example, also in Hong Kong. There is a cooperation with this company who made this system in Hong Kong. Also, Budapest is working like this, and some other countries. Some systems are from Scheidt Bachmann, and some they are from Cubic, who cooperate together with the London transport system. So that's our approach, this ID-based ticketing. Then the next slide. You see, to manage such a system, there it comes much more to the digitalization, to the ID competences. This system in the Netherlands runs since 5 or more than 5 years. The product name is Fairgo, and it's a cloud-based solution, intelligently networked. Now, finally, just this week, we got contract. This year, opening next year, will be the first application in Switzerland, the Bus and Service AG in Chur. That's for the region of Chur and Engadin, where is St. Moritz. They will implement the same system then in Holland, and the system will be managed in this cloud in our main headquarter in Mönchengladbach, which is near to the Netherlands. So that's cloud technology. That's the next important name. So when you come to the cloud, then also you know, when you come from informatics, when you work with cloud, you have a lot of possibilities, and for the accounts, this MyData approach is also a very important approach, because it's used for public transport, and in public transport the protection of the personal data is quite important. Also, because we have a lot of different transport companies, it must be open APIs, and it must be, because there are a lot of different players. and also for the data analytics in public transport that's used for public statistics, and also this GDPR, this data protection is very important to manage the cloud. But as you saw in this solution for the Netherlands, that's, I think, quite a big cloud solution when you manage 3 billion transactions for nearly 15 million people. I think in Europe, we are, beside Amazon and Microsoft, we are for sure one of the big cloud players. Then the next, that was cloud. Another thing is also the connection to the payment, because we do ticket machines, not only for public transport, for example, also for petrol station. In Switzerland, more than 1/3 of all petrol station is working with cashier systems from Scheidt Bachmann, and all the big oil companies, Aral, Shell, they work with our systems. So we have close connection to the payment industry, for example, Visa and Eurocard worldwide, because every ticket must be paid, and normally in this business it's paid by credit card. And because you collect money from different companies and you clear to different other companies, you are moving in a regulated financial environment. We have, as a company, we have ourselves a bank license, and we work together with payment services just for this settlement file, which is the base for the clearing from the bank. The clearing itself is made by banks or by special payment services. And we integrate also other services with this combination of ticketing and payment. For example, with our systems, for example, in Hong Kong, we don't only sell tickets for the metro, but the ticket for the metro itself is a payment system. In Hong Kong, for example, everywhere you can pay also with the same card than you use for the public transport system. So we have a close relation to the payment system. Then the next slide. This slide now is really from the payment industry. It's here from SIX Payment Service, the big service provider in Switzerland, which belongs now to Worldline, a French company. And normally we are used to work together with transport association, and that comes more from the buyer side. This idea of one ticket for all services, that's our classic business. But we see now from the other side, for example, from the petrol station, that there is need for marketplaces, for multi-shop marketplaces, for example, that different transport companies have the possibility to sell their tickets over one marketplace, and not that every company has his own web shop, for example. So there, more and more we connect this classic payment and ticketing with the e-commerce, and just a new project here in Switzerland is about this multi-shop marketplace, which we will introduce after the summer holiday. So there comes together e-commerce, payment, ticketing, all this together, and always the protection of data and the exchange of data in a cloud is very important. Then the next slide. In payment industry, we know the payment card. We don't have tickets for every transport company, but every bank has his own card, and every credit card company has his card. There are hundreds of different cards over the world. But the astonishing is, with your credit card, when you have a credit card, you can pay all over the world. You can use your credit card no matter if it's from Visa or MasterCard or American Express. Normally with MasterCard and Visa card, you can, in every country all over the world, you can use and pay your service. And what is for us also interesting, since some years, most credit cards and also most banking cards, they have the contactless function. This you see there on the left side of the card, it's the chip, and beside is this sign for this contactless function. And that's for us very important, because already a lot of systems, for example, in towns, they give the possibility that you can use your credit card to check in just with your credit card, and it gives you free the access to the transport system, and the fare is automatically goes to your credit card, and you see at the end of month on your credit card. That goes with a system where you have really barriers to come in the system, for example, in metro systems in New York or I don't know where. But this functionality is really important. And we see now that, for example, Visa and MasterCard, they try also to bring this function in the transport system, and we come from the other side. And at the moment, there is a close cooperation, because with the credit card on the one side, this contactless function, and with our knowledge of the transport system, we can really create interesting systems. That's the ID medium, this contactless function, where this card as an ID gives you access worldwide to the payment system. And the other thing, that's now for the MyData concept, all this worldwide payment system is certified by the PCI DSS standard. And these standards gives the possibility that these credit cards can be used all over the world, even when you have different bank accounts from different countries. It doesn't matter, you have different currencies, it all works, because it's a really ecosystem. And this ecosystem is also possible because the functions, they are divided. For example, the credit card itself is not belongs to the bank. When you are a customer, you have a bank account, and you can ask a credit card, or you can ask your bank if you get a credit card which is connected to your bank account. And that system, this ecosystem, that allows that also data is protected. For example, when you go with your credit card to a bank, to an ATM, then the ATM all over the world is able to recognize your card, but not the credit card number. It recognizes the card, and the terminal asks if the card is valid and if there is money on it, but the terminal don't ask to whom belong this card, from which bank it is. It's only allowance. And the information between the terminal and between the bank system or the credit card system, that's all in a cryptographic system to change this information, but there don't go any personal information. When you pay, then you get a transaction number that's worldwide for every transaction which is made in this payment system. There is given, I think, 18-digit transaction number. And with this transaction number, then your payment will be done. And the personality, what you bought with this card, who bought with this card, all this information is only given when there is case of a reclamation, for example. Then you can ask your bank who used this card with this transaction number, and then you can reconstruct what is behind. But normally neither the bank don't see what you bought with your card. The credit card also didn't see what you bought with your card. It's all anonymized, and that's, I think, is a big advantage of this payment system, that all work together, but nobody know more than he has to know. For example, the bank, the ATM station only must know that with this card you can take money, but in the moment when you take money, the ATM or the bank behind the ATM has not to know to whom belongs this card. That would be only a case when somebody would have stolen this card. Then you could go to, for example, to the video camera and see who was standing in front of this ATM. But then you need the police to get to this video picture. So that's the main thing for this we call EMV cards. You have once an ID medium which is worldwide valuable. You can worldwide use, and you have a system behind this PCI DSS certificated standard, which don't belong to Visa, which don't belong to MasterCard. It's a cooperation, it's a neutral ecosystem standard where every member who joined this system, for example, when you produce a terminal, it must be PCI DSS certified. And to get the status to sell these terminals, you must do all this process. And for example, also a seller, when he installs this terminal, he must confirm that he controls every day if the terminal is broken or something, or it's manipulated. And as soon as it would be manipulated, you couldn't use anymore. So that's the system which really, in the payment industry, we can say that the personal data is very much protected. And there is also a big difference between the payment industry and, for example, the advertisement industry, where is Google and Facebook. Business model from Google and Facebook is to collect as much data as possible, because their business model is working with these data. In the payment industry, it's completely the opposite. The best bank is the bank which protects the best your privacy, which protects the best and payment is a kind of privacy. And that's why the payment industry, this system, this ecosystem, is, from the business model perspective, for sure, there can be more trust to protect your personal data. Of course, in the bank industry, there are also business models which work just with this protection of data. You all know these systems, these banks which collect money from not so serious sources. But more and more, I think the banking industry really works with trust. So that's the base of our business model here. What we can do with these cards, with this contactless standard, and with this PCI DSS certification. Then the next slide. For example, that's a product how we, for example, in LinkedIn, which is promoted, opened payment. That's this possibility to, for example, in bus systems where one trip is one price, this system with, you don't have to think about buying a ticket. You just take your credit card, put to the validator, and then you go. That's a big advantage. And more, you don't need this a special card from the transport system. You just use your contactless card. For example, London was starting with this system. In London, you can use your Visa card, your MasterCard, and when you go first in London in a metro, you you just take your MasterCard and you can use the metro, and you don't have to think about ticketing. And this we combine also with the MyData account, because then you can, once you can give a specific ticket, for example, when you don't have a completely closed system, as metro, for example, in London, then when you check in, the system don't know where you want to go. When you don't have a check-in, check-out system, then it would be good to have that you can define which kind of ticket you want. And for example, there are systems where you have a lower price when you buy your ticket before. For example, in the air industry, you buy your ticket before with a low price, but then you check in with your personal ID. And the same we do in the public transport. You can buy your ticket before, but your ticket is in the account. It's referent. There's a reference to the bank card. And when you go in the system asks which services you bought on this card. And so you have the possibility with this idea of my personal account and this interoperable ID medium, this contactless card, you can combine your account with any service which belongs to the system. You don't have to combine 5 apps in one app. You just combine the accounts, the same as when you have one bank account, you can everywhere buy something, and you don't have to open first a local bank account to be able, for example, to buy something in Thailand or I don't know what. So that's the main concept. You use this contactless card, you use this concept of my account, and then you can combine payment and universal services in this account. I think that's the last. That was. Is there still one slide? No. I think that was the last one.
That was the last one. Yeah.
Yes. So I think here is the concept. These are the parts of you. We need the contactless bank card for as a medium. Then we have this my account approach, as was described. The my account in our systems is really a protected account where only the user has access to account, the same as a bank account. Not the operator, not the bank. Nobody has access to account. It's yours. You say which data go in your account, and you say which services you want to connect with the data of your account. And with this combination, you create a service. For example, in parking industry, when you park your car, then you registrate your car number in the account, and the service who control the parking area, he has access to the service account, and when he controls, then he only controls if this plate for this place paid the fee for this place or not. But the control person don't see to whom belongs this car. It don't see how long you paid for this car and how long. It only controls, as for example in the Swiss railway system, the same. When you show your Swiss pass, but which is a proprietary system from the railway industry, then the control person see only if connecting to your ticket, if you have a valid service or not, and it shows you green or red, but it don't shows you from where to where you really travel. And I think it's this combination of this banking card, which is anonymous, and the account and the control element, that gives the maximum of data protection, because every person, every actor in this system get only just the information which is needed in the specific step. As I said, when there is a control, there is no need that the policeman know your name. When you get a parking, when you have to pay for wrong parking, it only has to know if you paid or if you're not. And when not, then you have to start a process to the police. But this is another process, and other persons get access to also to the information to whom belong this car. But the private person, for example, who controls your car, they don't have to know to whom belongs the car. They only have to say, here's a car, this car has not paid, and I will send this information by the system to the police, and then the police, they can calculate the bill. And so I think that's the end of information, that this combination from the MyData approach, the ecosystem of the payment with this PCI DSS certification, and then the combination of the bank account with the service account, that gives a lot of possibilities to connect every kind of service with every kind of account, with every kind of banking or of payment possibilities. All combinations are possible. It doesn't matter which credit card, it doesn't matter which banking account, it doesn't matter which service. You can combine everything as you see in the payment industry. So that's would be my input.
Thank you very much, Andreas. So I would like to emphasize one point. It's about data privacy, and you explained it, but I would quickly like to recap it, because it took me quite a while to understand the principles underneath it. With the credit card, it's actually quite easy to understand. So I think the data privacy is based on a separation of data. And for the credit card, it's the merchant, the credit card, and the owner of the credit card, obviously, and the transactions. You have three elements, and you almost never see all the three at the same time. And that's basically how you can achieve the privacy objectives in the financial sector. And it's actually quite nice to understand the credit card principles, because it's very similar in the transportation industry. I didn't know that, actually. So it's again the principle of data separation. You only see a part of the data, but not the full record. And I think that what the Swiss Federal Railways had a little bit trouble with, so they had the full record on their mobile devices. So the guy ended up in congratulating me to my birthday. So he obviously had my birthday, but actually the data privacy will be that you only have a very limited set of information. So that was basically my finding. I didn't really think about it before I had this conversation with Andreas. I have a number of questions, but before I jump into that, I would like to open the audience for questions. Are there any questions to Andreas with regard to the transportation and credit card systems? Not yet, obviously. One other point, which it took me quite a while to understand the principle, with these RFID chips in the credit card, basically every chip has its own ID. And what you can achieve with this chip is, and you don't even need a physical card. Today you can do it with your mobile phone. You also have a RFID there. So you can link the identifier of this chip or the mobile phone with whatever access you need. You can link it with your account. So that relieves you from the burden to have 10 or 20 pieces of plastic in your wallet and ruin your trousers all the time. So the chip can be used or can be linked to specific services. That's something what I wasn't aware of. So one question which I have is actually this, how do you call it? This, the ID-based ticketing, Andreas. So I assume you have you have an account with your company, or which is operated by your company. So you don't have these tons of logins, which everybody of us has most likely. So I have one single login for my account where I can basically administer my services. Is that correct?
I didn't understand exactly. What was your question?
So the system which you have available in Netherlands, is there one single login for every person? So can you do away with these hundreds of logins?
Oh, no, I think it's a bit the same as in Switzerland with the Swiss pass. To get access to the system, that's a system more than 14 million Netherlands use. As when you have the Swiss pass, but I don't know if in Netherlands they have a single sign access. You have access to this. You need an access for your card for the transport system, but if this access is connected with other accesses, I don't know.
So the system which you recently got a contract for the Bündnerland, how are they playing it? Is there one single login? Do you know that?
No, in this system we would when the user get an account for the local system, then he can integrate the Swiss pass in this local system. One approach from us is that the account of the user is not connected to the how to say, to the company, for example, to the national company. It's more connected to the region where a person is living. And you bring the services to the person, and not the person goes to the services.
So is this Scheidt Bachmann solution for Bündnerland, would that be integrated into the Swiss pass then?
No, in the opposite. The Swiss pass would be, for example, in Huo, they have already such a system from other player. They have, for example, a Huo card and an Engadin card. That's a card which allows people who are living there, for example, to go shopping in Huo with rabatt in the local area, or for example also to go in a free time center. And you combine in this account, in this local account, you combine services from public transport with services from the community. So and your account is not based to a national or international company. For example, Swiss pass would be a national company, or Facebook would be an international company. Your account is just there where you are living.
So it's
and then you give from this local account, you give access to the services you need the most.
Okay, it's a local offering then. Okay.
Yes, it's a local. And for example, in Chur, we will combine the public transport with the local retailers and with the official services from the community.
Okay, let me quickly check. I have written down a few questions. I've covered most of them.
For example, a comparison. That's like when you have a Swiss pass, means a passport. Then when Switzerland has agreements with all the countries all over the world, with your Swiss passport, you can travel in every country because your Swiss passport is accepted everywhere. But when you go to America, you don't need an American passport, you go there with your Swiss passport. But when you have a passport from, I don't know, from a little country which is completely isolated, then you can't use your passport to go in another country. But it's more a question of acceptance, the same as in the payment industry. When your local bank has a contract with the credit card industry, then your local account from your local bank gives you access to the worldwide payment system. But you don't need an account in American bank. You have an account in your Sparkasse, I don't know, Niedertupfingen.
Okay, so you need a sort of a global standard where you can connect. So in the credit card industry, that's quite established. In the transport industry, are there global standards, or is that still a provider or a local approach?
No, it's very regional, very local, or in maximum for a country. And that's why we believe that when we, for example, the railway ticket, when the acceptance of the system, the same as a credit card is accepted all over the world for payment. So for example, when the Danish railway would accept a credit card as a ticket, or that gives the possibility that they can read what is connected with this banking card in a cloud solution, then that would work. So the idea is to use a worldwide standard and to bring this possibility of a worldwide accepted banking card using for services, for example, in public transport. Now, for example, in Switzerland, you have a Swiss ticket, and Germany has a German ticket, and Austria has an Austrian ticket, and so on. And only some countries, they accept each another the ticket from the other country. But it's, in my opinion, it's all about acceptance. You must, you must use a worldwide standard, and when you don't use a worldwide standard, then it's very complicated to multiplicate a national standard to an international standard.
Do you see from your perspective if there will be a standard for transportation similar to the credit card standard?
That would be the aim. That for example, the big thing is this what we had in the airplane industry, where we have ticketless system already since 20 years. But in the airway system, you can check in all over the world with your passport, and they see which flights are connected to your passport. That's the system in the railway system, in the airplane system. And you see in the airplane system your personal data, which is connected with your passport. You are always with a name in the airway system. And so, for example, when you would use not your passport, your personal data, as in the airline industry, when you would use the banking card as an anonymous system, for example, also in airplane, when you could check in with your credit card, not with your passport, then there would be much more personal protection. Because the credit card industry has not, it's not fixed connected with your personal data. But when you take a plane, you have no other chance than to give your passport number, you give your name. Otherwise, you can't use a plane. But when you use a normal public transport system, that would be from perspective of data protection, then would be tracked every movement you do the whole day. And that's why, in a way, you should take the same system as we have in the railway, in the airplane system, but you must put in an element which protects your personal data. For example, in China, the railway system now also works the same as the airplane industry. You can check in with your passport. But we all know that in China, your personal identity is anyway, the state knows all. And that's why we try to bring in this bank standard, which allows, in my opinion, a high protection of personal data, to make the same system as we have in the railway industry, where all over the world you can check in the system with your state ID.
As you're mentioning China, I have a funny anecdote. So we have a Chinese colleague, and he very proudly presented me his single sign-on with WeChat. So not this nasty thing where you have one login for LinkedIn and one for Facebook and one for the bank and one for e-commerce. He very proudly told me there's one single login. I can use it for banking, for healthcare, for transportation, for my chats. And I told him, but you know who's listening to all your conversations? He said, yes, if I post something politically incorrect, I'm going to be arrested. So that's the downside. So wrapping up, protecting data privacy is this principle. I take it from your presentation. I call it data separation. So it's very obvious in the credit card industry. It's obviously developing in the transportation industry. So I think they have learned from the credit card industry. The airline industry might be a little bit different. So, well, the passport was something what everybody had to have with him, but I think they also need additional information. So they need all this background screening. So maybe they need a little bit more information, but the data privacy in the credit card business, in general, in the financial sector and in transportation, it's increasingly coming along with data separation. What I also take from your presentation, in the financial sector, there are standards. So there's a global standard, this credit card standard. We are not yet quite there in the transportation industry, which is obviously much more local, and consequently you have more different standards and more interfacing issues possibly. So that's what I take from it. Okay.
And that's why this standard for payment industry, that's mostly pushed by the big companies. One is Scheidt Bachmann and the other one is Cubic Transport Systems. These big companies who have, together with MasterCard and Visa worldwide, a certain position, they try to bring this standard in the public transport system, a bit the same as Visa and MasterCard tried to bring this system in the worldwide payment system. But you need some bigger companies who are worldwide present in some part, but they are alone not strong enough to monopolize the system, and that's why there is an ecosystem cooperation. For example, also with Cubic Transport System, they work with the same system, and when they have there are even some towns where some parts of the system are managed by Cubic and other parts of system are managed by Scheidt Bachmann, and they can work together.
So you're working together with your competitors to develop these standards, is that correct?
In the same standard, because it's in our interest that in what works in one town works also in another town. The same as MasterCard and Visa, they have interest that all cards are functioning and not at the ATM only one card is functioning. Because everyone would lose half of the system when he would not accept his competitor.
Yeah.
One question. Hello. Is there a public standard?
This payment industry standard.
Yeah. You use for the communication and data exchange the payment standard.
Yes, these protocols for
Yeah.
that's the same standard then for this PCI DSS system.
Okay. Okay.
It's like a communication protocol. I think it's the best just for as for internet. You all use the internet protocol, and the internet protocol in a way don't belong to nobody, but everyone use the same protocol.
All right. Thanks.
Other comments or questions? Last chance. Actually, this gives me a nice wrap up. So we are obviously moving from silos to ecosystems. So even competitors cooperate to develop an ecosystem and to the benefit of all participants. And as a summary again, it's privacy is about data separation. So not showing the whole thing at the same time, but only showing the relevant parts.
Yes.
With that, I would like to finish up. I'll show you a few more slides, give you an outlook what's coming along. Let me see if I can find that. There we go. So you should be able to see my screen now.
Yes.
Good. So first of all, thank you very much, Andreas, for taking the time, for being with us, for explaining your activities. Again, I learned a lot in my briefing conversations. So a very interesting topic. I had it by no means on my radar. So thanks a lot, Andreas. With that, I would like to provide an outlook. The next session will be on September 1st about digital signatures. It's about digital documents and signatures, actually. So we are doing that together with the CEO of SwissSign, Markus Neff, with the CEO of Scribble, who is providing a signing solution, and with a lawyer who is very digital, mostly in the real estate area and in the ICT area. So you'll also find it on our Meetup channel, our Meetup group. This one will be in German, and we are currently evaluating, or we're going to have a live streaming, so still investigating the technology possibilities there. The next one on September 17th will be about the Swiss electronic health record. We have that on the list for quite a while. We had to reschedule it because this one will be physical. Because, as I mentioned before, or maybe not on this call, we will give you the opportunity to open your own health record. We hope that the system will be ready by then. So there were a number of delays, unfortunately. And you will also need a digital identity for a verified digital identity, and you will need physical presence. So for those of you who are planning to attend, take your ID card with you because you will need it to get your verified identity first and then your electronic health record afterwards. It will be presented by the CEO of Axana, which is the largest Swiss health community. Community of affiliation is the formal translation. So that's going to be a workshop, a hands-on workshop again. And before I forget it, the digital signature will also be a demo about available solutions. It's not a slideshow, otherwise we would have had it already. Actually, we wanted to do it during COVID, but there's a transition going on right now. It wasn't quite ready. So we will really show you in a demo what you can use today to sign your documents. So again, hands-on workshop. And the last one, where we have fixed the date, but not yet quite the agenda, is about smart cities, data collected in smart cities. We are trying to make that the panel discussion. So I have one participant who is actually the professor of smart cities from the University of Bern, University of Applied Sciences of Bern. It's Stefan Harler, who's professor for smart cities, and we are trying to find at least one other panelist, maybe from the data protection side. So that's on the plan already, and stay tuned for more events. So we are going to publish them here on the Meetup group. So last but not least, thank you very much for taking the time. Have a look at mydata.org, and if you can subscribe to the principles, you're very welcome to join and to support the organization. With that said, thank you very much. Have a nice evening and see you soon again. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.